moving forward in terms of like what voters not should do, but are going to see in terms of options, like it seems like now more than ever is now the time to vote like specifically for the person that you want as the independent voice or the MLA or whoever's going to be the nominee instead of the party. But I guess, do I have faith? Do you have faith that like voting for that person is going to carry the right weight at the province in Victoria?
Good question. Like, so a couple things we got to remember when it comes to vote splitting, like, and then the decision that each, disenfranchised candidate makes, whether or not they'll run again, it's like, it's very personal and it's very specific to their riding. And so like, I haven't been engaged in encouraging or discouraging anyone from that decision. I think it's up to them to make that call. So for me in my riding, like there's only two candidates. There's myself and the Conservative. It's not that for lack of trying.
There's no NDP candidate?
No, not in West Kelowna Peachland. And it's not for lack of trying either. They've run the gauntlet of, asking the best people they could find to run for them. And this is interesting. It's been actually quite humbling. I have had several people approach me personally and say, just so you know, I was asked to be the candidate for the NDP. But if you're serious about it, maybe we think differently on some things, but you're fair, you're just, you're respectful, you're here for the right reasons, and I'm not going to run against you. And so that's been very encouraging, very humbling. And, if I were to step down, I've already been approached by one of the candidates who said, then I will put my name in and run. And then we would have a very strong candidate on the west side for the NDP.
For the NDP.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I didn't know there's no NDP candidate. So now it's Conservative or you, the Independent.
Yeah. And I'm like, admittedly, I'm a center-right Conservative. I just have been my whole life. I don't, beat around the bush about that. So like, really, you have two Conservative voices, right?
Yeah.
I'm not against the Conservative Party. I'll be an ally to them.
Yeah.
Truth be told, I thought they were going to pick me up. 3.5, 4 weeks ago, they tried to get me to be the candidate here in Kelowna Mission. So,
come on.
Well, so they had, removed their candidate, and like that's up for debate whether.
Yeah, because she's now a little bit mad.
She launched a lawsuit.
Yeah,
I think
lawsuit.
I saw that yesterday.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that
and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that was the right decision that they made at that time for whatever reasons they gave, but they did approach me. But I'm very committed to my community. Like, for me, it's not about being a parachute candidate that drops into another riding. So I'm committed to moving forward to give my community the choice that they've had all along. And I think unfairly, some independent candidates are being treated like we're just entering the fray now. Like there's this shakeup and this shuffle, and people are trying to be opportunists and take advantage of a moment. But we've been here, many of us, for 7, 12 months. Right?
Well, because now you have to kind of rebrand, right? And start your campaign.
Like longer than that too, because like not a lot of people can just stop what they're doing and start campaigning and then actually win and then put your career on hold and all this stuff. Like it's not a light decision. It's not like, okay, pick me. Like this is a big deal.
So where does your funding come from and your campaign team now? Because obviously it's not from the BC United Party, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to say one more thing about the vote split thing. So in ridings where, and I'm going to say it this way, where you're fortunate to have a really high quality independent candidate, it's actually a very unique situation because currently there's only 8 independents running across the province. And again, we have to remember, like, when the media says like, well, independents don't usually get elected, well, that's a really skewed data set because it's typically people who, maybe for whatever reason, they're unhappy with government or they're more of a libertarian and they're just saying, screw it, I'm running. Right. Mm-hmm. And so they're usually unfunded or limited funded campaigns. And there's really not a lot of chances.
And like pretty fringe.
Usually pretty fringe perspective. Yeah. And so like we're actually unaffiliated independents. And so the difference there is that we are vetted through the most rigorous process there is by the official opposition party. And that's how we became candidates. We've been accepted by Elections BC. So we've been here all along, gone through the most rigorous vetting process there is by the official opposition party who has governed in BC for 16 of the last 24 years. So we're not typical independents. It's a very different thing. And so where you have a riding that you have an independent candidate of high caliber, like it's quite a stroke of fortune, I think, because you have the opportunity to now vote for the best person to represent your riding, knowing that they're not going to be an impediment to, changing government. They're going to work as an ally with the Conservatives, but now you get to choose and you're not really having to be distracted or held down by a party banner.
You also have the potential here to be the kingmaker. So you could have a lot of sway when it comes time to legislate, where you have, like, I want this. You know, like, I want West Kelowna to have this perk and that perk.
So how does it work then at a provincial level if independent gets in, no vote goes to the NDP or the Conservative? It's just a net zero, but you get a seat.
So if you were to elect me, you'd look at it, you're like, yeah, I think Stephen's the best candidate to represent us here. I'm going to throw my vote there. Yeah, so I would be elected just like any other MLA. I would have a seat in the legislature. I wouldn't have a party affiliation. So there's a lot of freedom that comes with that.
Yeah, big time.
So when you're bound by a party, you have to toe a line. And sometimes you can't actually advocate for the needs of your community because it may, you know, like this will happen in northern communities where maybe they have some specific needs that would go against sort of, whether it be for like the bear hunt comes to mind, like the grizzly hunt. So United MLAs in northern ridings, they had their constituents saying, hey, we need to advocate for this. But the party was saying, no, you can't. It doesn't fit with our narrative. Right. You're a little bit more free and unbound. It really depends how it goes. Like, I mean, we are in a situation where we've never had this many high caliber independents. So it very well could be that they end up holding the balance of power in the legislature. So you got to remember in the previous election, the Greens held the balance of power.
They had 3 seats. Yeah. They put the NDP over the top, and then they got a lot of stuff out of that.
You're right, Matt. Like, you have the opportunity to say, okay, I see where this policy is going. Here's what I think it's missing. Yeah. So you get to, you know, really throw your voice at, you know, rounding that policy out, giving it better perspective, better depth, but also saying like, no, you're not going to forget about my community. Like, here's what we're advocating for.
Like, think about, okay, let's talk about your writing specifically. Like, the voter has everything to gain by voting for you over the Conservative, because you're going to vote with them anyway on all the important things. And then now you get a little extra kick of a little bit more leverage on the things you want for your community.
Yeah, you get the best of both worlds.
It's the best of both worlds. Like, this is actually kind of amazing
and positive.
Yeah, like, this is unprecedented, because you're right. You had independents that are usually a little bit quacked, a little on the fringe. Not all of them, but like they skew that way. And now you have all these people who are totally normal, vetted candidates, quality people running that don't have any strings attached. Is kind of a
man. I was a little bit depressed starting this conversation, but I'm excited now. This is great.
This is what happens when you talk to Steve Johnston.
Yeah.